Okay, so looking at the second lesson that that I saw, you were talking about figurative language. The students were having to be writers, and they were also having to be readers. They were also having to be editors of their peers' work, which I thought was super cool. And I wanted to know how you built that student-to-student communication with one another. They were walking around, they were able to look at each other's stuff. So talk about how you built that into your lesson so that the students knew that they could freely comment and appropriately comment on their peers' work.
Well, we have a long conversation to begin with on the difference in criticism and constructive criticism and examples of that. So, that's clear at the beginning, and there's zero tolerance for anything ugly. But everyone loves to be an expert, and so when you put them in that position and you say, okay, you get to be the editor, which means you're the expert here, and you are helping the writer to be a better writer. That is your job. They like being in that position. They feel like the teacher, and they love to be the teacher, and so they do really well with it. And I'm surprised every time by how little actually I have to intervene. And sometimes they'll say, "Hey, this is a great metaphor, but it's actually a simile," and you have to interject. But they really do well, and it helps to encourage them. It's one thing for me to say good job, but when their peers are saying that's a really great sentence, I mean,
it means a lot more.
Yeah.
I noticed that you use the students use their iPads and their different apps to be able to post their comments about their writing and about their peers' writing. Also, that there is a picture up there that they've told a story about. So talk about why it's important to use the visual and the technology and all these things to help keep the kids engaged in the lesson that you are teaching.
Well, a good reader sees a movie in their mind as they're reading a story, and so what you have to get across to them as writers is that it's their job to create that movie. You have to write with such good language, good sensory imagery, figurative language, that it's easy for the reader to see that. So anytime you use visuals, it just helps to get that across even more. So once they see that, I always play music. So kind of you're stimulating all their senses there. And for some of the kids, I describe the picture also. This is what's going on, because it just helps to trigger that creativity, and then they usually just take off with it. So
moving on, I saw where the kids were moving around and they were given instruction, and you had that very well organized, and they knew the cues to look for and all of that stuff. My next question is, how do you make sure your kids are using academic feedback, where they're not just chatting with one another? How do you ensure that they are using the verbiage and the words and the language that we as teachers want them to be able to use, that show us whether or not they've mastered those skills?
Well, I model it for them. In the first first half of the year, probably, I do it with them. I write a story also, and I'm doing their room walk along with them, and so and then at some point I stopped doing that and just more float around and kind of go back and forth. But I model it for them, and I oversee it. But I give them the words to use, and they like using those words. Again, they like to be the teacher and to sound like they are the expert on that, and so
it just all works out that way.
They just do well.
Again, it was another great lesson that I enjoyed watching. I think your kids enjoy participating in it. You hit the nail on the head when you said kids want to be the teachers. Kids always want to be the boss. So I think you did it. I think it was a great lesson. I really enjoyed it. So thanks very much.